Hi, and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is our 27th guided meditation into Source Life. And now we've gone through 26 sessions which are continuous. These are meant to be not chopped off, but a marathon, a meditation marathon of ever-deepening journey to gain the literacy of the missing source code that takes us to the source of life and into the depth of all of our scriptures and enlightenment teachings and wisdom teachings and first philosophy, first science. And we've covered so many powerful themes that it's going to take us a lot of depth and time to metabolize, to breathe it in, to make sense of it, to ask deep questions, and to be skeptical in a healthy way in asking those questions on this guided journey into Source. And when we're in a meditative speech, a guided journey, we're not talking about it because, as we saw in this cosmogram, this 3,000-year human hologram of our human journey, to see this larger picture, the bigger picture from the deeper source field, to be able to see the human condition in this space and the dominant technology of consciousness and reason and language and word and making our worlds and our experience and our cultures and the vast variety of worldviews and ideologies and belief systems and scriptures and religions, all of these going on in that space. And one of the amazing themes that comes out of this 3,000-year holographic meditative visual of the human condition. Where are we in this picture? We're here. When we step back into the double bracket Unum science, the Unum Pluribus infinite space, the missing lens, the matrix, the code of source, meditative, mindful I am. This is the I am, I thou, deep dialogue, Unum vision space, and looking into the human situation here. And what we've seen, so many themes have come up because if we realize this, we've suggested in different ways that there is a matrix. We're saying this space that I'm highlighting in red, as we had before, this space represents a mental technology, a language technology, a rational technology that gives us information and meaning and truth and our world and phenomena and everything, beliefs and judgments. All of that's going on, and emotions and feelings, our emotional life, our rational life, our body life, all of our life is going on in this space because we have to process, and this is the processor. This is a processing plant. A matrix is a code, a law-like pattern that is being used to make our worlds and make our meaning and have our lives and our feelings and all of the events and my narrative and so forth here. So we've suggested that this is the human condition. We've been using this and this has been using us because when we are born into this condition of the culture code, across the border, across all borders of the planet, all of our human cultures, in our amazing evolution to informationizing reason and language and thought and psyche here, right? This matrix is so deeply implanted. We're born into this. This is our language. This is our code. Our language, our culture is a code. Our culture is coded. As diverse as they are, they're using a common generic code franca, lingua franca, logistic franca, like a computer program. It's a program, a deep program to make information and to process the world and to metabolize our experience, to make our experience. And it gives us many different alternatives, boundless alternatives. Here, we said there's a lot of wiggle room in this matrix. And it's a polarizing space we saw. I won't get into that yet. We'll go into it in a moment. But living in the human condition here, living our lives here, in this thought space and experience space and culture space, which has many different culture, many different lenses, many different ways of rendering our lives here. So all of our human cultures and belief systems and worldviews and paradigms are all going on here within this matrix. And we've seen that our pioneer teachers who are going to source, to reality. Reality is not confined here. This is a stage of encountering reality here. Reality, language here, is not the same as language, the primal word, the LogoSapien, the Unum Pluribus, double bracket language. So double bracket is the matrix of interrelational infinite flow of reality. Reality is this infinite field. So we've seen that in this cosmogram, in this hologram, this meditative space. And we can't think about that from here. We can't use this technology here to get to that. We have to step out of it to enter into the double bracket lens. Mind operating process, the source, tapping the source code. And that's the journey to source. The journey from desourced to source life. From a technology that gives me I and we and it and objects, and we objectify with information. We just playfully call it the Google space. It's been going on for centuries. Google is just an amplified version of information. And we informationize what we think about, what we feel. Our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions are all going on in this space. And our teachers saw, wait a minute, we're cut off from a deeper access to reality. That's what this is. I and the world, the other, is an interflow. So the matrix here, the double bracket matrix, is relational flow, interrelational, unum pluribus. The unity and diversity are connected. It's diversity in unity and unity in diversity, infinitely. LogoSapien, that's the LogoSapien code. And we've said Buddha was tapping this, Moses was bringing the laws, and this is the burning bush. The deep intimate connection with the infinite, with the source, here. So Jesus is speaking here, and Buddha is speaking, Muhammad, the angel is bringing the vision to Muhammad to bring to the people and the divided tribes the Quran, the Word of God, surrender to the source, to Allah. All of these great pioneers urging us to upscript, to come into the higher ground, because there's something deeply dysfunctional medically, ontologically, and the word ontology, we need to get more used to it, because ontos is the Greek word for being, and being is the space of reality. And so if we're the source, we're out of reality. If this is being and this is unbeing, then we're going to be broken in our being. That's broken ontology. My being is broken. And if we want well-being, we've got to get to whole being. If we want whole being, we've got to get the code. And our great teachers have been trying to model it for us. Jesus, I am the way. I am the code, the logos in the flesh. And Buddha is teaching the noble truths of the source science medically, to say this is suffering and we have a choice. We don't have to do this to ourselves and cut ourselves off from ourselves, ourself here. We don't have to suffer this matrix that keeps us bound and caged in this objectified space, because if we objectify ourselves, if we make ourselves an object, it hurts. It's dehumanizing. We never treat a person as an object. But more generally, don't objectify your life and your experience, because it makes a space, this is sacred space. We don't objectify, we meet. This is the I-thou, sacred meeting space of relational flow. Reality is a relational web, a boundlessly deep, infinite web of connectivity. And when we get the double bracket matrix code of I am, we begin to enter the learning process of being centered and stabilized and sustainable in the sacred space of mindful life, of enlightenment, of enlightened reason, of rationality, of ethics, of I-thou, and overcome the I-it dominance, where we I-it as object. So many themes came out, and one of the points we brought out in the last meditation, 26, is we sought with source science to give a deeper, more accurate laser beam diagnostic of what our great scriptures and enlightenment teachers were in effect calling us to do, which we can now clarify more with single bracket, double bracket, because they didn't bring out the matrix fully, it was implied. And they didn't bring out the double brackets explicitly, but it was what they were modeling. Yoga is here. Krishna is speaking here from the Om space. To Arjuna here. Jesus is speaking to the disciples. And he's speaking the Logos script. He is the embodied script, because when you are in the double bracket script, you are the script. Jesus was, the Logos, and John got it in the Gospel. In the beginning is the Logos, the infinite Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh, body, Christ's body, and it spoke. It lived amongst us. The double bracket lives within the double bracket space lives within us, but it doesn't give up the double bracket. It attempts to, the Buddha in the world seeks to upgrade the world. The Christ in the world seems to upgrade the world. The Krishna in the world to lift the world and help it move over. That's medical ontology, our being, bringing us to whole being. Because health is wholeness, and wholeness is integral, a unit, and that's the Unum. So, what I'm doing as I do in the opening meditation each time is to recall some of the mega voltage of what we've been doing so far, to bring it again before us, to make it alive and deeper, every time get it deeper, so that we can then go more in this meditation to build upon it and get our literacy and the language of living in this linguistic space, single bracket language, and crossing into the double bracket word power. Because the more we use the double bracket, the more it gets strong, and that's what the guided meditation is. Meditation is not something we do here. Meditation is the crossing into the source, into the Om space, the Christ, the Buddha space, the Tao, the Allah. So one of the powerful themes that came out at the end of the last meditation was what I call the user-friendly. That our great teachers can be seen now as saying, we need to detach from this motherboard, an mind operating system, our language, our reason, our way of using our minds to make our worlds. This is the matrix. We've got to really see that this is cutting us off, and it's using a law. It's using a code that is decoding us from a deeper, more powerful, humanized code. This code is the code of identity. A is A. A code is a law. And logicians, the founder of logic in the European tradition, Aristotle, said, what is a law that governs our thought space for all, whatever language you're using, whether French or German or Chinese or Hebrew, whatever the language may be? What is a law? It's a law of identity. Because A is A. If you don't have that, if our words didn't have ID tags and clear identity and units, then we can't, how can we use language? If I say the pen is red, and red is a word, it has a name tag, it's not the same as blue. This is blue, this is red. Every word gives a unit. And if red is the same as blue, then the pen it cannot be both red and blue. It's either red or blue. So identity is the deep law that gives us the matrix, that gives everything its name. So when I say I am me. And what is not I is other than me, I and the other. So when I say I, playing the identity game, and in a way, thank God we have the identity, because I'm different from everyone else and I want to be uniquely me. And in my property, in my home, in my car, and my money, and all of that's my stuff. And we have a name tag. So we play the ID game, the identity game. So life in this matrix, the identity matrix, is playing identity, but identity always others. When I say mine, if I say I, then I have the not I. If I say A, then I have the not A. So it's either A or not A. And I get into an either or. One or the other. And that's what this line is representing in this life, in this culture. There's always this slicing of identity of the other. Unity and difference. Local and global. Modern, postmodern. Theism, atheism. Science, unscience, or religion. It's other. Which is true, science or religion. They're in the same box. That's one of the points that we're bringing out last time, that we don't realize when we're living in this space. We think when we other and displace the other, we got it. But we don't see that the other, the polar, is part of the matrix itself. The matrix of identity is an either-or polar game that when you have to have A, you have the not A, B. So you can always other the other. You can always other and push away the other in this objectified space. And so, but this is where we make ourselves, in this space. So I'm a cluster of all of my attributes, the subject and the predicates, the attributes that makes me, gives me my ID tag. So S is or isn't P, is or isn't P. S, the subject upon here that we think about, say the pen is red. The pen is plastic. I can begin to give the attributes. S is P, S isn't. Pen isn't blue. So the is or the isn't is going on here, and is the word, the code for being. Either it is or it isn't. It's either true or false. Either or. Something cannot be both red and not red at the same time. It's either or. So the either or calculus keeps breaking things into their IDs and separating them out, and then we try to link them. I am linking pen is red. I'm taking red and linking it to the pen. Pen is red. I am male. I am teacher. I am father. And I take these pieces like Lego blocks. Identity gives us Lego blocks. Every unit. I'm playing with that. Lego is like, we play with kids play with the Lego blocks. They're pieces of plastic. They're things, and they're separate, and you piece them together. In a way, that's how we do our artificial thinking, to put the Lego pieces together to build our sentence. Snow is white. Plug that in. Rain is falling. America is a democracy. Whatever it may be. We piece the pieces together and we get meaning, and then we have something that's true or false. It's meaningful, you can plug it together and synthesize it. If you synthesize it, then it can give you a picture. So when you say snow is white, plug those together, you get a picture as a fact, allegedly out in the world, which is snow is white. And snow is white as a thought is true if snow is white, and now we've got science going. Well, what are the facts? Give me the truth. So we get our truth and meaning here. In this artificially manufactured, we don't realize it's artificial, it's normal for us. All of our languages and cultures are using unconsciously, pre-consciously, because it makes us able to process our consciousness here. Our consciousness here, our experience in worlds and cultures and religious life and political life and economic life and family life and love life, all going on here in this matrix, is not the same as going into the deep civilized space of relational flow. Relations here are synthetic in the culture of identity. A is A, but here A is A, double brackets. Double bracket A is not the same as single bracket A. Every single bracket A is A. The pen here is pen. I here is I am. So when we cross the language barrier from the smotherboard language in the matrix of identity into relational flow, this is the matrix of I-thou, relational, infinite, unum pluribus flow. Unum pluribus. Infinite unity, connecting and flowing, infinite pluribus. So there's otherness here. I and the other is different, but not different this way. Single bracket different is cut off. Double bracket different is embraced. I and the thou, the other. I and the thou, which is a sacred other. It's not objectified as an other. This line, this red line here, is a difference between my private psychological subjective space as a thinking agent and perceiving entity. My conscious life is here, and I am conscious of, and now I give you that I am cold, I am hungry, I intend to open the door, my intentions, my beliefs. I believe snow is white. I believe. So all of our judgments and beliefs and mental states and emotions and facts and truths and meaning are here. And that's language. And that's our rational space, our culture space. And this technology allows boundless alternative worlds. Let's just, we had this in, how many worlds can fit in here? How many different worldviews and narratives can compete for this space of truth and meaning? Here's the biblical world. Here's the scientific physics world. Here's the ecumenical, civic, say, American democracy world. Here's my yoga world. Here's my feng shui world. On and on. Here's my medical, allopathic medical, your acupuncture. And all of them keep opening up to change. How many lenses can we have? It's boundless. We can always change our lens and change our belief systems. And that's what you hear oftentimes. If your life is stuck with a story, a narrative, and you're feeling depressed and meaningless, and someone, teachers or life coaches, brings you, say, change your story, change your lens, change your paradigm, transformational. They give there, you can do transformations here. Single bracket change. It's not the same as change from here to here. That's the change that our great teachers and scriptures and enlightenment is calling us to change here, not change here. So what I'm suggesting is user-friendly. Last time is that when we hear and listen to your teachings, interpretations of Buddha's teachings, or Lord Krishna or Jesus, you got to die to be born again. What do you mean die? That sounds awful. Or you've got to stop desire, because desire is leading you to be attached to objects. You're being attached to, you are attached to objects. You've got to stop the desire, because that makes you attached to this place. Or your ego is generating your attachment, so lose your ego, lose your desire. And that sounds awful. Because I don't want to shut down my passion and my eros and my lust and love for life. I don't want to, not lust here, but passion is here. We don't want to shut it down. We don't want to kill. I don't want to lose myself. Perhaps my ID is compromised. Okay, my ID here is not real. I have a deeper ID here. So what we're suggesting is user-friendly is when we see now with source science, we couldn't see this before, with this new picture of the human condition, the double bracket matrix disentangled from the single bracket matrix, and to see that these are very different levels of language and experience and culture and reason and consciousness. The double bracket culture space where we're experiencing in the zone and being one with the field of interconnected flow and surfing that zone in peak performance and peak life. That's when we're entering the field of being. This is being. And we know the difference between being in that high zone and stepping out of this box of confinement into the open relational space. This is where love flows and compassion and ethics and respect for the other. You're not slashing the other with your lens. You're opening up to let her speak in her voice. You're not objectifying your children. Everything gets objective. We're not objectifying nature. We're not objectifying the work of art. Take the work of art, the Van Gogh, and encounter it here. Here's the Van Gogh painting. Here is the sunset. Here is nature, the forest, the flower, the person, your significant other, your child. Here. It's an I, thou. It's other. But it's not a smothered other. It's not an objectified other. That it's I or not I. It's the I meets the other in an open, sacred embrace of awakened consciousness. That's deep double bracket language. So there are two different laws, and a matrix is a law, it's a code. This is A is A. And that means either A or not A. And what that means is that in this space we can have always opposites. And if you look at the culture, you'll see that the swing over centuries has been a swing from, is it being or is it becoming? Is it God or is it not God? Theism or atheism? Of course, there's deism and all different kinds of pantheism. There are different kinds of isms. And in fact, all of the isms come from this matrix. The ism is a belief system, a story, a narrative, an ideology. Ideology is here. Knowledge is here. Beyond ideology. That's where you hit pay dirt. You hit the fundamental word. The language, the word, that is the flow, that is being. When we enter into primary being, as an awakened self, I aming in mindfulness, and we have the science and technology to hold that life space with a new mental rehabilitated mind flow from this being dominated by that matrix. This law is relational, interrelational. Unum Pluribus law. The law of the matrix here, the double bracket, means that I and the other are different and yet one. For the entire ecology, I and the ecology flowing in a deep unum pluribus flow in that flow, the space of being, primary being, and this derivative being, because it's objectified and downsized and down into identity. This is identity, this is relationality. You could say the law of relativity, not relativism, but relativity means relationality. Everything, relations rule here. The glue, the unum of reality is relational interplay. I-thou is relation. Relation is primary. Here, stuff is primary. Object, stuff. This is substance abuse because we create substances, entities, beings, stuff. Right? Even we want organic and we think we have got organic, but organic is here. And we are not organic here. This is where we become organic in the sense of the unified flow. So relations here, the continuum of reality, is a continuum, unum continuum. That means we don't make the relations, they're there. The love, the connection between us is already here. And our connections with nature, it's already pre-given here. But here we have to make relations. We have to synthesize them. We have to discover them because we've been cut off from the deep relational flow. So we get a kind of derivative, artificial relational going. So in our prior meditations, especially 24, 25, 26, and now into 27, the user-friendly is that, look, you don't have to give up your life and your profession and your identity and all you've worked for all your life. You do have to come to a new relationship with it. But when you give up this, in the sense of dominating, when you here you're dominated by this matrix. And that's not a good deal because you're suffering and cut off. But to learn to let go of it, first to see it. The trouble is we haven't seen it clearly. We needed the double brackets to see the single brackets. We couldn't see the single brackets from within it because it makes us see, as we've said. So to see this, that we're living and being held captive within the space, to see that we've got to go deeper, to see it from the double bracket, Unum science, source science, in the double bracket space, and to realize that, oh, I couldn't single bracket without the double brackets. That's why it's around us. Why? Because it's infinite. So the infinite is all around us at every point, here and here, infinite. But we somehow lose it, even though it's here. The infinite is here, of course. If we use God talk, God is right here in every breath in our everyday life, all around us, in us, outside of us, inside of us, all around us, in between us. It's all here. It doesn't go away here, but somehow we displace it by a matrix that sets us back and sets us apart from what we see and what we experience, and therefore it's an it, an object. I, it. I, thou. So the matrix here is relationality, relation, boundless, infinite, unum pluribus relation, and this is like Lego blocks, is like logos units. A logos unit, I am a unit, individual. But that doesn't mean I'm cut off from connectivity with the entire field. A true individual is not isolated and cut off. This leads to loneliness, aloneness. When you play this game, it cuts you off from yourself and cuts you off from other and cuts you off from flow, and you become isolated. The I becomes isolated, and there's a desperation to overcome the isolation, which here we don't have. We're here, we're connected, we're in flow, and that's where we become whole, in rational space. This is deep, mature, integral, rational space. This is disintegral, premature, immature stage of rational information in the box, and we have to go transinformational into the zone of flow. So what's user-friendly is that we can fear when we hear our great teachers calling us to enlightenment, to wisdom, to scripture, to Christ, that we have to make a sacrifice that seems to be devastating to us. Because I've got to let go of my family, let go of my home, give up all of this stuff, let it go, turn away from it in order to take the path into the Christ or into the Buddha or into the yoga or whatever the call to the higher may be. And that is really a misunderstanding. That's a single bracket misunderstanding of the medicine of the double bracket call. And the double bracket ontological medicine, medical ontology, begins now to show us what our great geniuses were pointing to, and they didn't fully name it and call it out in terms of a matrix that's holding us captive and cutting us off. But now what's being called for detachment is not to detach and somehow die or give up your desire and give up your body and give up your profession. But to take out the matrix, identify it and understand the science and the medicine and the technology of letting go of this mind operating implant and transforming and rehabilitating our minds into a double bracket, from monologue to dialogue, from I-it to I-thou. And that is something we're born for. We are dialogue sapiens. We are dialogue beings. We're coded that way, but the code is blocked. If you could tap our logos code, our DNA, logos genetics, or logos genome, whatever metaphor you'd like to use, if we could tap our source code that's in us, that's sourcing us, wow, that's going to be the ultimate game changer for our human condition. Our human condition here is in deep malpractice, suffering, and all of the many range of disorders that we recognize are disorders. We didn't realize medically, scientifically, they're being generated in large part from the technology of consciousness and culture making and word and reason that we're using that cuts us off. The identity calculus is creating a devastation, and if we medically get out of here and go to a deeper, more mature form, we don't have to throw out our computers. We don't have to, on the contrary, we couldn't have computers without the source and cell phones. And all that we've had in our cultural evolution over millennia is being sourced by the source. We couldn't do it without the source. I hope you see that. I mean, you should be asking, what does he mean by that? Why can't I have identity without double brackets? Why are we putting the double brackets around and saying that you couldn't have this? All that we have now, we couldn't have it. We couldn't have single brackets without the double brackets. Why? Well, this is going to be a further meditation down the road. I don't want to go there yet, but I want to just give you a quick hint, a preview, a trailer of what's going to be. It's because to have a Lego block, it has to be the same through time. Well, what allows any unit, if I say I, philosophers got this. When I say I, the same I that when I was 5 years old, when I was 10 years old, when I was whatever my age is, I went to college, same I left home, what's that I, that identity? Well, I'm the same me. Why? Because it's the same. I'm the same being, even though I'm changing, and all of my attributes changed from since I was 3 years old to where I am as an adult. My qualities have changed. My size, my weight, all of this has changed. Certain things are constant, but I've radically changed. But I'm the same. Why? But my identities remain the same. I'm the same substance. So my identity remains constant through deep changes that are always going on. What's pulling that off? Well, philosophers knew there must be something holding it together. What is that? That's the Unum. That's the Unum glue, the unifier, the unity force. The field of reality is holding the ground to allow us to play the game of identity. That's why this culture is sustained by the source. We couldn't breathe. We couldn't be the same. We couldn't play these games and languages we have. You couldn't have English without the source. You couldn't have French or Swahili. You couldn't do science. You couldn't have mathematics. You couldn't have digital or computer working without the source. Nothing. You couldn't have a history. You couldn't have a narrative. You couldn't have language. You couldn't have truth. You couldn't have meaning. You couldn't put pieces together. You couldn't have pieces. You couldn't have units without unity. But once we play the identity game, we pretend we got it on our own. We pretend I'm existing on my own. Nothing's holding me. Right? That's the arrogance of egoing and monocentric mind, privileging itself. I'm my own being. And everything I've got, my pen is my pen. If my pen stands on it, nothing's supporting this. That's the mythology, that's the fallacy of the matrix, to think it's working on its own without the source. And our great philosophers saw that if you erase this double brackets and erase the single brackets and just go and have that, it all falls apart. If you don't have the double bracket glue, the Unum Pluribus power, the infinite force of the universe, holding words together in relationships and space and time, and all of the building blocks of reality are held together in a profound unity. That's the continuum. That's the continuum of the field of reality, really. But we can't get it here because we're using an immature stage of calculus, as powerful as it is to have information in the box. right? Which we've evolved over to tame the Logos word, to tame it with this technology. So far, we now have to face the fact, as our great teachers over 2,500 years and more, and scriptures are saying, this, don't get stuck here. It's a stage in our evolution and development. Come home. Come home to relation. Come home to ethics. Come home to love, to I thou, to dialogue, from monologue to dialogue, from false ID to true ID, to who you really are, who we really are. In interrelational flow. Get real. This is reality TV here. And this is unreal and pre-real and de-source. So in rehearsing so many of the themes, because we're getting ready to go deeper now, in the 27th meditation, what we're saying is user-friendly. The more user-friendly way, scientifically, medical ontology, right? The medicine of deep double bracket ontology is saying, look, understand what you're sacrificing and what you're giving up and what you're detaching from. You're letting go of a matrix, a mind operating implant, a thought form that is so deeply implanted. It's our culture itself. Our culture comes from this mind operating process, this matrix, this motherboard, right? And it's having deleterious effects. It's having devastating pathological effects by desourcing us and cutting off ourselves from ourselves and from reality, nature, and flow, and each other, and creating deep abysmal violence, because this technology slashes and objectifies. And when you slash yourself and the other with your lens in the space and objectify, it breeds violence. Scientifically, medically, and we don't hear people who are urging us to come to nonviolence saying that the matrix is a matrix of violence itself, to objectify our lives and ourselves and our others and our children and each other and different cultures and different religions, and to objectify, most of all, to objectify infinite, to objectify God, to objectify Yahweh, to objectify Jesus, to objectify Buddha, to objectify whatever the Allah, to objectify is a slashing of the source. Desource, this line, this technology desources and objectifies, and that is a deep medical diagnostic of wide-ranging violence. Racism, objectification, because when you objectify, you've already violated and slashed the other. And then as an object, it's dehumanized already by objectifying. We dehumanize ourselves by processing ourselves in this cultural plant, in this industrial cultural production factory. By manufacturing yourself in this space, we are dehumanizing, because a human is a sacred LogoSapien, dialogue being. And we undialogue ourselves and make ourselves monologue. So Homo sapiens here, sapiens means wisdom, and wisdom is here. A sapient being is in wisdom, sapient, Sophia, is sapiens. So Homo sapiens, we're a species of wisdom, and wisdom is double bracket here. But pre-sapient, it's also almost like a Neanderthal culture is going on here until we get the code to say, oh, this is where we get the laws of Moses, of God. This is where we get I, thou, that love the other as yourself of Jesus. This is where we get the Buddha compassion. This is where we find our human self. So the user-friendly idea is, okay, now we have a more clear scientific breakthrough of an ultimate scientific discovery, which is science itself, deep science, first science. And that's not a new idea. This is a classical idea of first philosophy, wisdom. Let's get the first, deepest narrative, and everything else comes out of that, because everything is coming out of being. If you get the DNA for being, that would be ultimate science. That's first science. That's medical ontology. That's ontology. Ontos logos. The science of being. And you can't get it in the box, because when you put it here and you try to find a being here, it's really cut off from being. And when we are cut off from being, we're going to be pre-being and unbeing. Our being is going to be ill. And so that's the deep ontological medical diagnostic of brokenness in the human condition in our cultures. In our personal lives, my inner life, my psychic life is broken and divided using this technology. My relationship to myself and to others. And by being cut off from being, it hurts, and we try to fill the void of being cut off from the true me and from being. As we said last time, we feed it all the time, and we don't have this technology to name it and call it out fully. Our brilliant psychiatry and psychotherapy and amazing breakthroughs in the 20th century and into the 21st century of trying to understand the psychology and psychotherapy and psychotherapeutics of diagnostic of the human who's in depression, who is lacking focus and concentration, who's distracted, who's facing suicidal thoughts and feelings and thoughts of death, and in a midlife crisis, and the meaning collapses, and you don't have meaning, and you're trying to get meaning in your life. All of these, addictions that we have, and we're brilliant in how we've gone so far, because the source is always aiding us. The infinite force is trying to help us constantly upgrade and get better, to get prepared to move into the crossing from the smotherboard matrix of I-it to the humanized matrix of I-thou. So what's user-friendly is that, wow, I didn't hear that before, but I heard stop desiring, lose the ego, right? And all of these coaching of spirituality that go back for centuries hasn't worked. And now we're saying, okay, let's do the science. Let's do double bracket science. The matrix, we didn't see that. That is cutting us off and producing and manufacturing boundless divisions with identity pieces, and we have a Lego life here, not a Logos life. I want to be me, I want to have my ID, but the Lego ID is plastic, it's not real. Here, it's false ID. My real ID, who I really am. I need a deeper stage of language and rational development and cognitive and brain awakening in order to handle the double bracket. And we've got this code in us, but it's stifled. And our journey to source life is to help coach us with a deeper diagnostic picture of first science, which has been missing, but emerging for centuries, trying to get the language of what is first. So when I say user-friendly, I mean that, okay, I don't have to give up my computer. We don't have to give up medical science. We don't have to give up my profession, whatever it may be. I can take it from a single bracket, deformed, smothered, objectified, to a deeper profession, whatever the profession is. If I'm a teacher, I can become a teacher. If I'm a lawyer, I can be a lawyer. If I am a health worker, a physician, I can be a healer. If I'm a therapist, a psychotherapist, I can be a psychotherapist in transpersonal space. This is transpersonal, holistic psychotherapy of seeing the human here and not here where I've been trained, because we're trained to understand phenomena here. In this place of science. Science is going on here, religion is going on here, politics is going on here, our economic life, our family life, our love life, our sex life, all going on in this, under this governance and dominance of the single bracket matrix, which source science is saying that is something we've got to face and call out. So I'm rehearsing the whole journey so far from number 1 to number 26 as we're going deeper into 27 to say the user-friendly idea is that medical ontology can say, what does it take for me to see how this hidden matrix, which I couldn't see before, now this journey is calling it out. Oh, I can see it. I'm stepping back. I can see the single bracket matrix, thought form, level of language and mind consciousness technology. It's a technology, a stage of technology that allowed me to have my world as it is, and my experience and my religion and my politics and my profession and my science. It's all there. Call it out and see it, and see what our great teachers have been saying. This is not a good idea to get stuck with the implant of a single bracket matrix, a smotherboard, because it's causing all kinds of polarization, fragmentation. So you look at racism and sexism and homophobia and all of these so political, interpersonal, cultural maladies. What's going on? Objectification and identification, Lego blocks. Because when you objectify a human, it doesn't take much, when push comes to shove, to dehumanize. It's dehumanized already, to really 86 it, push it away, disown it, other it, cast it out. Privilege your own story and cast out the other. There's ultraphobia, fear of the other. So there's a pathologic other here and a sacred other here. There is otherness, there's no question. In fact, the other is deeper than we realize. Every grain of sand is unique in this space. Every breath, every human is absolutely unique and sacred here. That's individuality and the sacredness of the human. And the other, and interconnected to the other. You can't break it. That's given on the ground floor of the infinite Unum continuum. But here in the objectifier and the materializer, everything is objectified, including our spiritual life. What I'm now saying is going to be a bit shocking, that science is going on here, and insofar as science is different from religion, and each is pointing a finger, religion is pointing and saying science is delusional, science is saying religion is delusional, and each is pointing a finger at the other, but they're both in the same space. I call that the same boat axiom of source science. The either-or identity matrix is polarizing, but both polar, p and un-p, whatever it is, x and un-x, whatever they are in the same place. And if we saw that, it's shocking to see that theism and atheism are in the same place, same matrix. Scientism and religionism, same place. Republican, Democrat, same place. Independent, same place. You can't wiggle out of it. The wiggle room here is amazing. Change your story, change your life. Yeah, when I change my story, yes, my life, my story is changed. My belief system has changed. My paradigm has changed. You can shift paradigms every month. I'm joking. But we hear, change your paradigm, transformation, get to the other. Yeah, you can do that here. We have been doing that here. We have higher and lower. If we say God is higher and we are the created world and the higher God world, we can do that here. This single bracket matrix is amazing in what it can do. We can say anything. We can say anything in this language. We say, this is the power of now. We have love here. We are one. We are all one. All religions are common. We can say all kinds of things here. We can have the four agreements. We can have the Buddha's truth, the Four Noble Truths. We can do our spirituality and our enlightenment here. And if we don't call this out, then we're going to keep doing it there, and it cuts it off and it's not here. This is where the power of now, this is the power of love, this is the place of peace. If we say, let's have the peace zone, and we're doing it here under the unpeace zone because it's a violent place of objectification, this cannot be peace. This is peace. If you're a peace activist and you're doing the activism here, you're undermining yourself until you call out this motherboard that is the unpeace. It's a violent technology. If you want to make the civic American space, let's say, civil, if you want to be civilized and to be civil, you can't do it here in the polarized space of ideologies because they're going to duke it out and fight it out. And there's no one nation under God, indivisible, here. It's got to be here in the Unum. It's one people, Unum people, Pluribus, multicultural, and yet Unum. Community in diversity with individuality and otherness, which is sacred otherness, in dialogue, coming together. This is where civic political life flows. That's what it means to be civil. Ethics, reason, rationality. This is mature reason. Dialogue, deep dialogue of being able to listen to the other and for the other to speak and listen to each other from a deeper space, but not to privilege your own lens and objectify the voice of the other. When women say, don't objectify me, don't treat me as an object, that's just the tip of the iceberg because we're objectifying ourselves and everyone else. And our children. Because why? Because we have an objectifying technology. And when you objectify, it leads to violence because it is violent. We don't hear that said. The matrix of our culture is inherently violent, and to stop the violence, we've got to call it out and move to the non-violent matrix of love and compassion, which is Buddha and Jesus and yoga and Socrates and all the great, and the Quakers and the Rumi mystics. All of these great mystical traditions are seeing that this is not truth, this is truth. We may not have the words to it, and we don't know how to tell you, and we don't know how to use the words. We didn't have a code to get the words, the deep words, the infinite word. It's filled with power. When Jesus is speaking it, I'm the way, I'm the word, I'm the truth, I'm the life. Come this way. And when you say, those who believe, my beliefs are here. All of these pieces, I believe that the door is open. I believe that the rain is falling. I believe the sun is shining. I believe beliefs are here. So if you believe in Jesus and the Gospels, and you have the Gospels here, your religious life is going to be cramped and stultified and blocked from being a sacred life, crossing into the Christ space, beyond belief, into deep belief, source belief, which is not your believing information. You are one in communion with the Christ Word when you're in deep, awakened rationality, enlightened reason. You're one with the Word. And that's why Jesus was speaking, for example. I'm using him as Jesus as an example. Jesus as the Christ is a double bracket code speaking the code and modeling it and being it. Buddha is doing that as well. The Buddha is moving beyond ideology because he saw that this is a suffering place and this is the cause and we have a choice. So our usual choices are in this box. I can do this or I can do that. I can choose to be Republican or Democrat or independent. I can choose. I can choose to be Newton or Einstein. I could choose to be this or that. I could choose to be, well, I have a choice here. I'm an agent, I have a choice. I'm a change agent. I can change my story here. But that's not the change we're talking about. This change, from this matrix to that's a change. The source medicine and source science is putting it in our face. So everyone, I'm saying to everyone who is with us in this meditation, everyone, help caregivers, those who are self-helpers and enlightened teachers and ministers and rabbis and imams and religious teachers and scientists and educators, everyone, parents, people who are doing therapy and patients who are in therapy, all the public who are buying sacred religious best-selling books because they feel they've got the truth now and they can change your story here. I'm presenting the challenge of this Unum science. There's a challenge for every human to answer whether you're a caregiver or a care receiver. Please, I'm urging us all, after 3,000 years of hitting the wall and not really seeing this clearly, I'm suggesting we haven't seen this clearly. And Buddha wanted to end the suffering, and Jesus was trying to end being cut off in sin, and died to end the sin, which is what? Which is the code of the cut that severs us from each other and from source, from the Christ life here. They died for that. Socrates is drinking hemlock to say we've got to enter the Logos. And this is sophistry. It's not real knowledge. Knowledge here is not real knowledge. It's sophistry. It's make-believe knowledge. It's synthetic knowledge. So the difference between the philosopher here and the sophist here, the philosopher goes for truth, the sophist goes for trades in falsity and simulation and appearance. This one deals with reality. This one deals with unreal, the appearance, and so forth. They're in the same place. If you're doing your philosophy here and not here, first philosophy, then the philosophy is being sold out to the single brackets. If you're reading Buddha here, you're selling out the Buddha. If you're doing Jesus here, you're missing Jesus. If you're looking at God or Allah here, you're missing Allah. This is very powerful, challenging things I'm suggesting from source science. I'm seeking to be, after decades of research in these great teachers and in my own work in logic and deep ontology and seeing the single bracket, double bracket and saying, wow, we need to really help ourselves and each other see the difference between the two levels of language. And to see, even though there was deep fear in making the crossing, because I'm going to lose all my stuff. I'm going to lose, if I dare to go into the double bracket space. If I open the third eye, the first eye, which is the double bracket, that's the third eye. It's called the third eye here. But it really is the first eye, because this is the first space. This is first. This is my primary being, my primary self. So when my mind opens up, my mind eye, my heart mind opens up, now you can handle the voltage of interconnectivity. And it doesn't mean you've got it. It means you're going to live an ever-deepening life as a, let's say, a heads-up quarterback. Always new, always challenging, always, I'm going to hit potholes. That's enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a mental state here, because a state of mind is static. But when you enter and we enter into the surfing, the zone of infinite pluribus flow, it is fractal. That means every point is infinitely othering and flowing, interconnected, space and time, and mind and word and world, and I and you, and nature all interflow. And when I can face that with a dialogue, intelligence, it means that's where enlightenment begins, because it's not a mental state you got. No one can achieve enlightenment. This is a place of enlightenment. And you can't achieve it. You say, I got it. You can't get it. You can't own it. It holds you, and you surf it. And that means this is the learning place. This is the listening and speaking and growing and learning deeper and deeper, fractal. It's exciting. That's when you become a double bracket finite human. There's a single bracket artificial finite where it says, I'm only human. We're only human. We hear that all the time. We're just human. That's the person who's buying into this condition. Saying, this is humanity. I'm only human. We make mistakes. We're finite. We're limited. I said, but that's a degradation of who we are. We are finite. We're not infinite. We're not God. We're not the infinite field. But when we surf the infinite, and how do you do that? When we learn the art of dialogue, which is what science is, by the way, because science wants to look out and perceive what is out there and get the evidence in the feedback loop, experimentally and intelligently and collaboratively, and to verify, right? That's a dialogue dance. Science, deep science, is a dialogue dance. That's the superiority of scientific method. It's saying you don't sit in your study and you have to interface with it. But you can't interface here with nature. Nature is not here. Nature is contained. It's packaged. But nature here, facts here, phenomena here, the cosmos here, right? If I try to do my cosmology here, right, it's being limited by my matrix. If I'm trying to be a religious being here, it's limited by my matrix. If I'm trying to be spiritual here, it's limited by my unspiritual, objectifying, materializing, reductive, mental processing plant. This is important. So there's a deep materialism. It's not just physics talks about matter. The universe is made up of matter and the Big Bang, and everything is matter, and that's it. And the other one say, no, it's spirit. So materialism versus idealism. Idealism saying spirit rules. Materialism, matter rules. They're in the same box. That's strong to say that. Materialism and spiritualism are in the same place. They're both materialized, objectified. Objectification is the problem, and that's generated by the matrix of I-it. Every it is objectified. It could be my spiritual. I have my Buddha, I have my yoga, I have my Jesus, I have my God, I have my Torah, I have my Quran, I have my Gita, whatever it is. If I have it here, it's materialized. And there's physical materialism and spiritual materialism. Materialism is the objectifier. So the wiggle room in this space is enormous, but it keeps us trapped because we think when we other what we had, I did something new. I'm a change agent. I went from one story to the next. I left from one paradigm to the next. It felt new. Oh, this is fantastic. I'm now othering. But you could keep on othering, and it's still in the same matrix. So our whole cultural life, every aspect of it, including our emotions and feelings and intuitions and all our mental states, under the sway of here is going on here. So this is a vastly open space with wiggle room to change and get new stories and new paradigms and new fads and fashions and new stars and new rising superstars and new icons we can make, and we keep going and going in this cultural space. And we've got science and we've got the unscience, but they're still together. So it's important to see that real knowledge, capital K knowledge here, double bracket knowledge, is a deeper cognition and encounter with reality than knowledge here. As great as our knowledge is, knowledge versus ignorance is still ignorance. Knowledge, ignorance, ignorance. And that's why our great teachers like Buddha and Krishna and Jesus and others are saying that when you live in sin, cut off from truth and reality, you are in a deep ignorance. This is an ignorant zone. The matrix keeps us ignorance, and when we think we have knowledge, small single bracket knowledge is not double bracket knowing. Single bracket science is not double bracket science. Single bracket worship is not double bracket spirituality. Spirituality, spiritualism is not the same as spiritual encounter on the first ground floor of reality. Matter here is sacred. Nature, planet, sand. A grain of sand is infinite. There's infinity in a grain of sand. Nature, our bodies are sacred. Matter is sacred. Sacred matter, sacred spirit. And spirit and matter can't be divided, as it is here. So science and spirituality cannot be divided because the highest spirituality is the highest science. They meet. They're here, they're polarized. Here they meet. Is it the individual or the community? Is it communism or capitalism? Right? Is it Karl Marx, production, materialism rules, history, and the evolution of cultures and economics rules, or is it spirit, Hegel? Spirit, Geist, moves history. No, matter moves history. Those are, if they're here, they're still playing off of each other. They're in the same boat. So polar alternatives like modernism, postmodernism, same boat. And our great teachers saying, get out of that boat. It's a Titanic. We've got to come to an ark, the ark of a deeper reality of the word of source. All of our God games are coming out of the source space. So source science, Unum science, first science, right? With the calculus of reason, tapping the logos code, which is reason, and opening up a deeper encounter of reality, a direct encounter, not to objectify it, but to meet it in that sacred space. This is sacred and this is desecrated. So, several things in this meditation, trying to take us deeper to really absorb it. And that is the user-friendly point is that sacrifice seems so, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give up my profession or give up my possessions and give up my children and my family, whatever it is that I love and I work so hard for. Don't ask me to sacrifice that. So sacrifice sounds like painful, destructive letting go, rather than a joyous moment to let go of what? Of the motherboard that's causing our deep dysfunction and suffering and pathology. That's what we're detaching from. We're detaching from a matrix, a mind operating process that objectifies and cuts us off from being and reality and love and truth and intimacy and communion. That's what we're sacrificing. And that's a joyous sacrifice. To sacrifice the sin producer, the samsara producer, the objectifier, the violent producer, the slasher, that's causing all of this deep breakdown. Again, I hope you follow this, that whether it's my personal, internal, personal breakdowns that I'm suffering from thoughts of meaninglessness and my life crisis and depression and addiction and attachment and codependent relationships and trying to find love in this place and not feeling the intimacy of real love and connectivity and relation here, right? That's traceable to this motherboard. And all of the racism and sexism and ethnic cleansing and homophobia and all of these violent patterns are deeply undeniable. They're there. We know they're there. The current state of the world with terrorism and the melting down of the gridlock of democracy in the American scene, for example, it's serious. We're not one people because we're in monologue and we don't even, no one is saying it. No, but when you read the 1776, I've said this several times in our fourth meditation, was to say, look at the unfinished American evolution revolution, to move from single bracket America to double bracket democracy. We said that way back. But we left that way back in the prior meditation. That's why I keep bringing them up again and again, to hear it more deeply each time. We cannot have democracy in a monologue space. We have to go to dialogue, to have dialogos. That's what the pluribus unum pluribus means. That's a mantra of the 1776. E pluribus unum. The many one. How do you get that? You can't get it here because it's either it's one or it's many. That's another polar. Either unity or diversity. You want unity? Give up your diversity and melt down a melting pot to come to one. Which one? A Christian country? Is it a what is the one? Who's got the one? But this is Unum. The Unum is Pluribus, and that's the unity. That's the one. So when we say we are one, it means we are Unum. Or the religions are connected, it means here. So the user-friendly twist now is that we don't have to give up all our gains, all our beautiful advances of civilization, which are gifted by the source. We have to value and honor them. And so what we're sacrificing is not throwing out our computers and throwing out our family and throwing out our money and our professions. It means to gain it. That's what's user-friendly. In the sense that, okay, I can do this because sacrifice is great. Sacrifice is ecstatic. Because what am I sacrificing? I'm sacrificing a pattern, a mental thought form that has been holding me captive, that's been causing devastation to my life and my culture and the future of our planet. And what the future for our kids? It looks dismal. It's depressing. It's medically depressing, ontologically depressing. I'm giving that up. That's what you're sacrificing. We're sacrificing. Is to just rehabilitate from this addiction to this motherboard with my identity, which I'm holding on to my idea and my story and my belief system and my ideology. But I can get to a much more powerful scripture and life and belief system and science and my profession and my love life. All my whole life will blossom in the dialogue, sacred space, if I can sacrifice the single bracket. So I'm suggesting that is a much more accurate, laser-focused, what are we sacrificing exactly? It's to, it's not to lose the ego, that's a symptom. The ego is a symptom of this. Your desire and psychic attachment is a symptom of this. So if you start to lose the source, then you let go of that version of yourself, the egoized, whichever lens you're using, whatever worldview or belief system you have, to become the primary version of yourself, which is fractal. It's not one version. It's not a fixed, it's a fractal open being with boundless alterity and multiplicity. That's who we are. That's why there's deep power in becoming a self, an Atma, not just an ego monocentric, but a dialogue, fractal, human, LogoSapien. Turn on the Logos code and enter the Christ, enter the Buddha, enter the yoga, and feel the connectivity. That's amazing. That's where we become fully self-realization. So self-help, if you try to do self-help here to this self and help it to adjust to a profoundly dysfunctional society and culture and world and space and technology, that's not help. Self is here. So a true self-helper has got to really help herself and others to make the crossing into this place of self. So in a way, I'm speaking to make sacrifice something painful and giving up and killing and letting go and stifling desire and passion and your body to blossom your body. It's the opposite. It's joyous sacrifice, how we should look at it. And everything that we've gotten, all of the magnificent breakthroughs of medical science and technologies to bring the world together, that's a gift of the source. And to hold on to it and come to a new relationship with our iPhones, cell phones and computers and jets and television and social media. All of these gifts, we're coming to a whole new relationship with it. We don't have to demonize the internet or demonize the iPhones or demonize whatever, the computers. It's who's using it that's the issue. When sacred humans use these gifts from source to link ourselves together, these are magnificent gifts to create a beautiful world together with all of our deep diversity, to go more diverse than we ever thought or imagined. Because this space, this pluribus space, is deeply diverse. Every person is absolutely unique here and sacred. That's individuality and diversity here. Diversity with unity. Community is here. And human flourishing. This is what's going to save our world from the meltdown that we're in now here. It's been coming for centuries, and it's reaching a peak moment of bubbling over where it's imploding in so many ways. And it's because of the matrix that's holding us here in a broken, separate Lego blocks, Lego units rather than Logos sacred units of interconnectivity. That's a lot. So when I say user-friendly, I'd like to end on one call to all of us. And then we'll take a break. wherever you are, if you're a caregiver, whether a parent or a professional therapist or a medicine healer or a spiritual life coach or an educator in the academy or in the elementary school or in the college or universities, wherever you are, whatever your profession, whatever you are, whatever you're seeking answers for meaningful life, and you want to end deep addictions that may be holding you back and giving a kind of life crisis and emptiness, wherever we are, whether you're a caregiver or a receiver, a recipient, let's ask a question together in a loving spirit. Are we facing the single bracket matrix of the I-it stage of our development that is a deep implant in our culture and our lives, all of us? Have we faced it? Have we called out the single bracket and seen it? Have we seen the devastating consequences that our great teachers have been recognizing for centuries, and we're still not getting because we're back here and we know how to do this, which is what this journey to source is calling it out? I'm suggesting that any enlightenment teacher, any self-help coach, any motivational speaker that wants to motivate, to get self-esteem, whatever it is, are you facing this and are you looking at that? I'm just inviting us. Any medical physician in medicine, is my medicine here? Is my science here? Because if my science is here and I'm doing my cosmology and my physics and my biology and my chemistry and astrophysics and computer science, whatever, natural science, social science, economics, if I'm doing it here, right, am I facing that? And what would it be like for me to really get the matrix, the technology of the double brackets, which has been called out for so many centuries, to finally get it? And what we're doing here is breaking them out, so we deconflate these two, and to get the alignment of the cosmogram that is our human condition. I'm suggesting 3,000 years. What do we learn? Check it out. This is a cosmogram of our human condition and where we are stalled here, and that this has to be faced. The single bracket matrix has to be faced by all of us. And I think anyone who's going to buy wisdom, ask, is this wisdom teacher calling out the single bracket matrix and seeing the double bracket matrix? And if not, I want to have an answer. Why not? Why not? If you're doing science, are you facing the fact that the matrix of reason and technology within which your science is embedded, can your science be much more powerful than you ever imagined by being stalled by a single bracket? Have you called it out? Because scientists more than others should be critical thinkers to look at what is the mental operating process that I'm using. Could that be stalling me from the unified field? If Einstein had done that, if Einstein had said, wow, I know there's a unified field and I want to get the unified field of physics and nature, but he hit a wall. What wall? The matrix, the single bracket matrix. If we want the grand unified field, here, where there's non-locality and superluminary velocities, and to understand the depth of black holes and the origin of the cosmos, cannot be a Big Bang. Big Bang here melts in a new way when you come in, because you can't begin the infinite. You can't have a Big Bang to open up the infinite. That's bad science. Cosmology here, of the origin of the universe here, right, and say it's a Big Bang and it's expanding and it's matter and not spirit and not intelligence, is a very different than cosmology in the deep ontology. Ontology is primary cosmology, the origin of the universe, the infinite being. Have you come to terms with that? I'm asking. Economics, if we're looking at economics, and we've got brilliant advances in economics, there's $1 here. But what's $1 here? What's a unit of value when we're in the zone, in this source, in real wealth? If we can have hoarded billions of dollars here in egonomics, but how about logonomics? The logos value of wealth to be in the Christ space, the Buddha space, the yoga space, the Om space. What is the measure and unit of wealth? What is the gold standard in the double bracket? Wealth of being connected with presence. There's nothing greater than that. That's ultimate value. And you can't buy it. You can't buy it with single bracket dollars. You can't buy me love. You can't buy me God, intimacy with Source, intimacy with being, with meaning, with value, with ethics. It's beyond money. So in our economic theories, whatever they may be, and people are speaking about soul of money and sacred economics, and those terms are bandied about. What is that? That's logonomics. This is sacred. What would sacred money be like? Not single bracket objectified money, but money is a currency of exchange, of value that has to do with consciousness. And we have confidence and faith in the money and the debt. And how do we understand debt and the trust we have? All of these aspects are part of money too, and debt and credit. And the workings of deep money, logonomics rather than egonomics. I'm using examples. If I'm a politician in Congress or whatever, any public servant, a governor, a senator, an elected official, whatever you are, ask in your civic life of democracy, am I living my democracy here with this dominant single bracket, or am I moving into sacred democracy? E Pluribus Unum, 1776. Could 1776 be the call from colonization to here? Because to get rid of the monarchy is not yet to get rid of the single bracket. And the 1776 geniuses were seeing, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we're all created and endowed by the Source, by the Creator, with unalienable rights. This is our human rights as persons. Life, liberty, happiness, well-being. Well-being is here. How many of us are reading 1776 here, in this matrix, when the 1776 opening lines say, you got to separate. Detach. From what? From any thought form or political band that puts us in a place that violates our sacred humanity and personhood. So whether we're a civic person in democracy or a citizen, every citizen is, we're in every country, in every form, in every political space across the planet. Am I living in a tyranny? Am I colonized or am I free? Am I a compromised, objectified being in a tyranny that's invisible? Even if I may be a free land, a First Nation, a land of the free, is the land of the free here or is the land of the free here? If we have, say, in the Pledge of Allegiance in the Americans, I pledge allegiance to the flag here of the United States of America. Is it united or is it disunited, divided states? And this is the flag. This is a sacred flag of Unum Pluribus, of dignity and persons together in democracy. Which flag? One nation under Source, indivisible here. This is indivisible. People, we the people here. Have we gotten that? Every citizen. Have I really understood the call of 1776 to separate from any thought form or matrix or code or covenant or human political arrangement that cuts me off from dignity of my birthright from Source? You could say God or just Source. To the human dignity of being a free being. This is a free-range human. This is caged. This is colonized. So ejecting the monarchy of the British is not yet to face the deeper issue of what's dividing us. The civil war that's going on here. It's not over. It's not over with the Gettysburg Address. And the emancipation of slavery is not over with the Emancipation Proclamation because we're still enslaved. We're still colonized. So in our economic life, our medical life, our psychotherapy life, our parenting life, how do we raise our children in the art of being a sacred human? A dialogue sapien. Are we doing that, or are we just buying into the cultural code and passing it along for centuries to slash each other and go out there, honey, and have a good life? Because it's already a life crisis. All life here is already in crisis. It's not just when you hit your mid-years in your 40s that you have a life crisis. That's when you can't sustain the life crisis anymore. You've done it all the way through elementary and junior highs and high school and college and into your profession, and you got your retirement, and you still cut off from yourself. Your being is ill. That's medical ontology. The missing first science that has been centuries emerging. Our great teachers were trying. Descartes, Meditations on First Philosophy, for example. He was trying to get to the foundation of being. And he did. He crossed into it. But we just put him back in the box and read him here. We keep doing that. We download teachers. Any attempt to get it, we put it down here, inscribe it here. So let's sum up this meditation. I've gone on again. I get passionate. I get carried away in speaking in this space. And forgive me because it's urgent, because I see suffering. I see people are suffering. Our kids are suffering. People are lost. And we're trying to put on a happy face and pretend we're okay and we're going to be fine. And there's a lot of deep cultural depression and personal depression and intercultural, interpersonal depression. And the politics of the planet looks pretty dangerous. And it has been. It's not getting better. With all of our science, with all of our Google, with all of our information, with all of our technologies, we still are suffering because we're not getting medical source science to see the code that's going to bring us to well-being and health. So I'm ending this on a double note. There's every reason to be happy, and because I'm happy. I see this and I'm happy because I'm thrilled, because I feel finally I'm so happy to be alive now and to learn from all of our great geniuses and scriptures across the planet that I've been living and studying for decades and saying, wow, check out Buddha, check out Jesus, check out Socrates, on and on, check out Lord Krishna, check out Lao Tzu, whoa. Right? They're seeing it, and I began to see as a philosopher, logician, ontologist, that there's a code. They're pointing to it. I'm beginning to see it. We've got to call it out. We haven't seen it yet. And it's ecstatic to sacrifice and let that go. It's like, wow, we can have hope now together. We can stop slashing ourselves and each other. We can get to the medical deep source, the ontological source of the deep, abysmal, inscribed suffering that we haven't seen it before, deeply. So that to see it now, to call out the single bracket says, wow, could that be separating and objectifying and generating a vast range of human, personal, and cultural pathologies. And to do that is like the moment says, wow, we can end it. We can end our suffering. As Buddha called, as Jesus called, as Krishna called, as Socrates, all of our great teachers saying, we can end it. We have a choice. Which matrix are you going to live by? This matrix or this matrix? That's a choice. Not just a choice here, but this choice. So I want to end on that note that this is optimistic. This is a moment to be, in the 21st century, to be joyous. We can help our kids and our grandkids to cross into a cultural space that's going to be amazing, to be humanized and nonviolent. We can do that. It's our duty to do that. We want our kids to look back and say, wow, in the early 21st century, our elders, our parents, our teachers, our healers were able to help us cross and open up the portal into presence, into high culture, and to end the abysmal suffering, and not to just pass it on and desecrate our kids and our environment and nature in a gross mismanagement and malpractice. This is malpractice. It's a misuse of consciousness, it's a misuse of language, it's a misuse of reason. It's malpractice. So everything in our culture is in a malpractice and cut off from reality. And going into this crossing is to coming into proper virtuous practice of rational beings, deep dialogue, compassion, nonviolent. So I'd like to end on this note then, is that there's every reason to be happy and ecstatic that we can do this. It's in our reach. We have the technology to do it. It was not, the technology was eclipsed and buried, but it's being brought out. Single bracket, double bracket, let's do it. And I'm inviting every human being, the buyers and the sellers, the givers and the receivers, to help people find the self-help, because the path for self-help is a path to self here. I'm asking all of us, are you coming to terms and facing authentically the depth and the implications of a single bracket matrix? Does that make sense to you? Can you see that we're using a mind operating process that gives us our information? I mean, gives us a lot of amazing things. And we have amazing technologies and breakthroughs and advancements and medical technologies and insights and finding cause and effects in so many illnesses. Great. It's not to deny that. Because all those gifts come from the source through our filters of our matrix. But are we facing the deleterious, devastating effects of the single bracket matrix? Are we coming to terms with it? Or are we just looking the other way and saying, I don't believe it. If you don't believe it, show us you don't believe it. Answer the Buddha, answer Jesus, answer Krishna. Answer these geniuses for centuries whom we revere. Answer the rational journey from Socrates to modern philosophical thought of reason. Answer it. If you just say there is no single bracket matrix, Ashoka's making it up, fine. Say it and keep on going. Right? Because I'm speaking to the ones who are scientifically critical thinkers who are ready to say, I'm going to do some deep thinking about this and research. I'm going to research this myself. Because you have to. No one can tell you. And I'm not trying to tell you, I'm trying to model and bring out the distilled essence of our great wisdom teachers and enlightenment teachers and wisdom teachers and first philosophers, through the centuries, converging in the same source, because it's Unum, it's got to be the same source. And now we can find it and see the link between Jesus and Buddha and Moses and Krishna and Mohammed and beyond. So I'm inviting every person. It's a buyer of wisdom. You want to buy wisdom and get help and coaching and to improve your motivation in your life and so forth. Is your teacher helping you with the single bracket, double bracket shift? Does he or she understand the difference between double bracket matrix and single bracket matrix? However he or she may do it. They don't have to use double brackets and single. This is just my way as a philosopher, a logician, to code it for us, to see the double bracket is the matrix of interconnectivity. It's the I am matrix, the I-thou matrix, the deep dialogue. And the single bracket is the I-it. It's a monologue. It's the identity matrix. This is the relational matrix. This is the disrelational. Are we coming to terms with that shift? Have we called out the medicine and the clear evidence of the effects, the devastating effects of all of our human pathologies, which are traceable to the objectification slasher of the single bracket matrix? I'm inviting everyone, every human, to ask from the deepest soul, am I facing authentically the single bracket matrix in our culture, the I-it? And am I facing the double bracket matrix? Do I see the depth of my choice of which mental operating cultural code I'm going to use? And that the double bracket, nonviolent, compassionate love space and sacred space of the double bracket I-thou, am I facing that? You can say, I don't want it, and dismiss it. Are you facing it? Are your life coaches and therapists and ministers and imams teaching religion, are you doing religion here? Is this where the church and the synagogue and the Word of God is here, or is it here? Are your ministers and rabbis and imams and spiritual teachers showing the difference between spiritual word of source, word of God, word of Christ here? Are you seeing Jesus here or Jesus here? Are you seeing God here or God here? Are you seeing Quran here or Quran here? Are you seeing the Bhagavad Gita here or here? Is that being done? Is your yoga teacher showing you yoga is here? That yoga is not something the ego does. That yoga is letting go, stepping out of the smotherboard into the Om space. I'm inviting all yoga teachers, all spiritual helpers, right? Are you doing your spiritual teaching naively to the public in the single bracket space without calling it out? Or are you finding a way to call it out consciously and helping yourself and the practitioners and clients to understand how to make the crossing from single bracket matrix to double bracket health? I'd like to end on that note. Everyone must face this, and it's the highest priority. It's been going on for millennia, and we're still hitting the walls and suffering, and it's getting worse. The symptoms are getting worse in our personal, interpersonal, cultural lives. It's a medical emergency. It's an invisible crisis, and we've got to do it. And I speak with that passion as a medical ontologist practitioner myself. And I'm asking all persons out there, are you facing the single bracket, double bracket shift? And the joy of understanding we can end the suffering, to see how suffering comes from single bracket culture making and self-making and meaning and reason, and double bracket awakened reason and enlightenment and wisdom and truth and spirituality. Let's end on that note. And I don't know even how long I've gone on. I've lost track of time, and I hope you stayed with me all the way. We'll continue next time. I want to go deeper into the question of spiritual practice, religious practice, education. What are we doing educationally? Parenting. How do we raise our children? Love life. What is a healthy love life going to look like? And sexuality in the double bracket space? And so on. Economics. So I'd like to look at the range of our cultural art forms and institutions. Education, science, spirituality, religious practice, economic life, and consumerism and attachment to stuff. And what would it be like to find the wealth of being an awakened self in the double bracket matrix of logonomics beyond egonomics and the attachment to money and as an ultimate currency and so forth. So let's take a pause, and there's a lot to digest, and I hope to see you next time as we go to number 28, the meditation. Thank you so much for being with us.